How would you feel if you woke up to find legal documents on your kitchen table, all because of one night out? What if your husband, the man you thought would always forgive you, suddenly became the one holding all the evidence? Can one night of fun really destroy a marriage, or is there always more to the story? The bass thumped through my chest as I pushed through the crowd at Pulse Nightclub, my sequined top catching the strobing lights. At 32, I felt alive for the first time in months. The suburban mom routine had been suffocating me slowly, and tonight was my chance to breathe again. "Vesper, you look amazing," Jenna shouted over the music, her blonde hair whipping as she danced. "I told you this would be exactly what you needed." I smiled, feeling the rhythm pulse through my veins. My best friend was right. This was exactly what I needed. Away from Ethan's constant worrying, away from 7-year-old Chloe's endless questions, away from the monotony of my hospital administrator job. Just me, the music, and the freedom to be myself. My phone buzzed against my thigh. Ethan's name flashed on the screen with his usual worried husband text. "Hey babe, movie night with Chloe. She picked Finding Nemo again. Come home soon." I rolled my eyes and shoved the phone back into my purse without responding. This was exactly what I was talking about. Ethan always did this, trying to guilt me into coming home early, making me feel bad for having a social life. He was 34, but acted like he was 60, always wanting to stay in, always worried about something. "Everything okay?" Jenna asked, noticing my expression. "Just Ethan being Ethan," I said, taking another sip of my Cosmopolitan. "He wants me home for some boring family movie night. God forbid I have one night to myself." "You deserve this," Jenna said firmly. "You work your ass off at that hospital, you take care of Chloe, you manage everything at home. When's the last time you did something just for you?" She was absolutely right. I couldn't even remember the last time I'd gone out without Ethan hovering over me, or Chloe needing something. I was always giving, always sacrificing, always putting everyone else first. For once, I wanted to put myself first. The DJ switched to a song I loved, and I felt my body respond to the beat. A guy with dark hair and an easy smile appeared beside me. I'd noticed him behind the bar earlier. His name tag read Toby. "Great song," he said, moving closer so I could hear him over the music. "The best," I agreed, letting myself get lost in the rhythm. When was the last time an attractive man had noticed me? When was the last time I felt desirable instead of just useful? Toby was a good dancer, and unlike Ethan, he didn't make me feel self-conscious about moving my body. He was 29, he told me during a brief pause between songs, and worked at the club part-time while pursuing his art. He was everything Ethan wasn't: spontaneous, creative, alive. "You're married," he observed, noticing my ring. "Unfortunately," I heard myself say, then laughed to cover the admission. "I mean, it's complicated." It wasn't really complicated, but it felt good to say it. It felt good to pretend, for just a moment, that I wasn't tied down to a man who thought excitement meant trying a new restaurant. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Daryl, Jenna's husband, and Ethan's colleague from the accounting firm. "Hey Vesper, Ethan's worried. Everything good?" Great. Now Ethan was sending his friends to check on me like I was some kind of child. I showed the text to Jenna, who shook her head in disgust. "This is exactly what I'm talking about," she said. "He's so controlling. You can't even have a girls' night without him monitoring you." She was right. This was controlling behavior, wasn't it? Normal husbands trusted their wives to go out with friends. Normal husbands didn't send surveillance teams. I texted back to Daryl. "All good. Just networking with some work friends. Tell E not to worry." It wasn't technically a lie. I was out with friends, and Toby worked in customer service, which was sort of related to my hospital work. Close enough. As the night wore on, I found myself dancing closer to Toby. He was easy to talk to, easy to be around. He didn't lecture me about responsibility or ask me when I was coming home. He just enjoyed my company, appreciated me for who I was right now in this moment. "You're beautiful," he said during a slow song, and I felt something flutter in my chest that had been dormant for years. "Thank you," I whispered back, meaning it. When was the last time Ethan had called me beautiful? When was the last time he'd looked at me like Toby was looking at me now, like I was fascinating, desirable, worth pursuing? "Group photo," someone shouted nearby. Before I could react, Jenna was pulling me into a cluster of people, Toby's arm still around my waist. The flash went off multiple times as people snapped pictures with their phones. "Post that one," Jenna laughed, pointing to someone's phone screen. "Vesper looks gorgeous." I barely glanced at the photo before turning back to the music, back to Toby, back to feeling alive. This was my night, my moment of freedom. I deserved this. It wasn't until I was in my Uber at 2 a.m., my feet aching from dancing in heels, that I checked my phone properly. 17 missed calls from Ethan, 12 text messages, progressing from worried to hurt to angry. The last one, sent 20 minutes ago, made my stomach drop. "We need to talk." I crept into the house as quietly as possible, hoping Ethan had fallen asleep on the couch waiting for me. No such luck. The living room light was on, and he was sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop open, still wearing the same polo shirt he'd had on when I left. "Hey," I said softly, trying to gauge his mood. "You didn't have to wait up." Ethan looked up at me, and I could see the hurt in his brown eyes. His hair was messy from running his hands through it, something he did when he was stressed. "It's almost 3 a.m., Vesper." "I know, I'm sorry. Time just got away from me." I kicked off my heels and tried to look appropriately apologetic. "How was movie night with Chloe?" "She waited for you until 10:30, he said quietly. "Kept asking when Mommy was coming home. I finally had to tell her you weren't coming back tonight." The guilt hit me like a physical blow, but I pushed it down. I was allowed to have a social life. I was allowed to stay out late occasionally. Ethan was trying to manipulate me with guilt, and I wasn't going to fall for it. "I'm sorry she was disappointed," I said, sitting down across from him. "But Ethan, I never promised I'd be home for movie night. You just assumed I would be." "You said you were going out with work friends for a few drinks," he said, turning his laptop screen toward me. "This doesn't look like a few drinks with work friends." My heart stopped. On the screen was a Facebook post from someone at the club, the group photo from earlier. I was front and center, Toby's arm around my waist, both of us laughing. I looked happy, carefree, and very much not at a work networking event. "It's just a photo, Ethan," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "We ran into some people from the club. They wanted a group shot. It's not a big deal." "The timestamp says this was taken at 1:15 a.m., he said, his voice getting tighter. "And who's the guy with his hands on you?" "His hands aren't on me. His arm is around me. It's a group photo." I was getting defensive now, which wasn't helping, but I couldn't seem to stop myself. "And his name is Toby, if you must know. He's a bartender there." "A bartender?" Ethan's voice was flat. "So you were lying about the work friends." "I wasn't lying. Jenna was there, and some of her friends from work. Toby just happened to be working that night." The lies were coming easier now, building on each other. "Honestly, Ethan, you're being paranoid." "Paranoid?" He closed the laptop with more force than necessary. "My wife tells me she's going out for drinks with work friends, doesn't answer her phone all night, comes home at 3 a.m., and there are photos of her all over social media with some random guy. But I'm paranoid." "You're twisting everything." I stood up, my own anger rising. "I'm allowed to have friends, Ethan. I'm allowed to go out and have fun without you monitoring my every move." "This isn't about monitoring you, Vesper. This is about honesty. This is about respect." "Respect?" I laughed, but it came out harsh. "What about respecting my need for independence? What about respecting that I'm not your property?" Ethan stared at me for a long moment, and I could see something changing in his expression. The hurt was hardening into something else. Disappointment, maybe, or resignation. I never said you were my property, he said quietly. I just thought we were partners. I thought we told each other the truth. We are partners, I said, but even as I said it, I could hear how hollow it sounded. Look, I'm sorry I didn't answer your calls. I'm sorry the night ran longer than expected. But you're making this into something it's not. What is it then? It's me having a social life. It's me being a person outside of just being your wife and Chloe's mother. I could feel tears starting, and I let them come. Maybe if he saw how upset he was making me, he'd back off. I feel so suffocated sometimes, Ethan. Like I can't breathe. For a moment his expression softened, and I thought I had him. But then he shook his head. Having a social life doesn't require lying to me, he said. And it doesn't require staying out until 3 a.m. without answering your phone while our daughter waits up for you. Our daughter was fine. You were there with her. That's not the point, and you know it. We stared at each other across the kitchen table, and I could feel the distance between us growing. This wasn't how this was supposed to go. He was supposed to understand, supposed to apologize for being controlling, supposed to give me the space I needed. Instead, he stood up and headed toward the stairs. Where are you going? I called after him. To bed, he said without turning around. I have work in the morning. Ethan, wait. Can't we talk about this? He paused at the bottom of the stairs. I tried to talk about it. You lied to me instead. After he went upstairs, I sat alone in the kitchen, staring at the closed laptop. This wasn't my fault. I hadn't done anything wrong. I'd gone out with friends, had some innocent fun, and come home to my family. The fact that Ethan couldn't handle that said more about him than it did about me. I pulled out my phone to text Jenna, needing someone who would understand, but stopped when I saw a notification I'd missed earlier. Someone had tagged me in another photo from tonight. This one of me and Toby during that slow dance, his face close to mine, my eyes closed. I quickly untagged myself and deleted the notification, but my hands were shaking. It was just a dance. It was just one night of feeling alive, of feeling wanted. There was nothing wrong with that, was there? The next morning, I woke up alone. Ethan had already left for work, which was unusual. He normally said goodbye, even when we'd fought. Chloe was at the kitchen table eating cereal and watching something on the iPad. Morning, baby, I said, trying to sound normal. How did you sleep? Okay, she said without looking up. Daddy made my lunch already. That was nice of him. I poured myself coffee from the pot Ethan had made, another small kindness that made me feel worse about everything. I'm sorry I missed movie night last night, sweetheart. Maybe we can watch something together tonight. Daddy said you were working, Chloe said, still not meeting my eyes. I was networking. For work. It's like working, but with other people. She nodded like she understood, but something in her expression reminded me painfully of Ethan, that same quiet disappointment. My phone rang. Ethan's mother. Hi, Irene, I answered, trying to sound cheerful. Vesper. Her voice was crisp, professional. Irene had never liked me much. She thought I wasn't good enough for her precious son. I saw some interesting photos on Facebook this morning. My stomach dropped. Oh? Yes. You looked like you were having quite the time. I hope Ethan and Chloe weren't too lonely while you were networking. The way she said networking made it clear she knew exactly what kind of networking I'd been doing. It was just a night out with friends, Irene, nothing more. The sound was loaded with judgment. Well, I hope it was worth it. Ethan sounded quite upset when he called this morning. He called you? He calls me every morning on his way to work, dear. Has for years. Today he sounded different. After she hung up, I sat staring at my phone. Ethan had talked to his mother about our fight. That wasn't like him. He was usually private about our problems, preferring to work things out between us. I tried calling him, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried texting, but got no response. By the time I dropped Chloe at school and got to the hospital, I was starting to feel genuinely worried. Maybe I had overreacted last night. Maybe I should have been more understanding of his concerns. Maybe I should apologize. But then I remembered how controlled I'd felt, how alive I'd felt dancing with Toby, how good it had been to feel desired again. I wasn't going to apologize for taking one night for myself. I was reaching for my phone to try Ethan again when I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The family laptop, the one we shared for household stuff, was sitting on the counter with a password screen I'd never seen before. Ethan had changed the password and locked me out. By Friday night, the tension in our house was thick enough to cut with a knife. Ethan and I had barely spoken all week, communicating mainly through logistics about Chloe's schedule and household responsibilities. He was polite but distant, like I was a roommate he didn't particularly like. The dinner at Romano's was supposed to fix things. It was Jenna's idea. Get both couples together for a nice meal. Show everyone that Ethan and I were fine. Prove that he was just being oversensitive about a harmless night out. This will be perfect, Jenna had assured me over lunch earlier that week. Once Ethan sees that everyone thinks he's being ridiculous, he'll snap out of it. I wasn't entirely sure that was how it would work, but I was desperate to get back to normal. The silent treatment was wearing on me. And worse, Chloe was starting to notice the tension. She'd been quieter than usual, more clingy, asking questions about why Daddy seemed sad. We arrived at Romano's right on time. Ethan had barely spoken during the car ride, just nodded when I pointed out that I was wearing the blue dress he used to say was his favorite. He looked handsome in his navy button-down, but there was something different about his posture. Straighter, more guarded. Jenna and Daryl were already seated when we got there. Jenna jumped up to hug me, making a show of how excited she was to see me. But I noticed Daryl's greeting to Ethan was more subdued than usual. "You look amazing," Jenna gushed, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "That dress is perfect on you. Doesn't she look great, Ethan?" "She always looks nice," Ethan said quietly, pulling out my chair for me. Even in the middle of our fight, he still had manners. "So," Jenna continued once we were all seated, "how's everyone been? Vesper told me you two had a little disagreement about her night out." I shot her a warning look. This wasn't how I wanted to start the conversation. "It wasn't a disagreement," Ethan said calmly, opening his menu. "It was a discussion about honesty in marriage." "Oh, come on," Jenna laughed. "Vesper went out dancing with friends. It's not like she robbed a bank." "She lied about where she was going and who she was with," Ethan replied, still looking at his menu. "Then she stayed out until 3 a.m. without answering her phone while our 7-year-old daughter waited up for her." The table went quiet. I could feel my cheeks burning. "Ethan," I said softly, "can we not do this here?" "Do what? Tell the truth?" He finally looked up at me. "I thought that's what we were here for, to clear the air." "You're being dramatic," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "I went out with friends. I lost track of time. I came home. End of story." "And the bartender?" Ethan asked. "The one with his hands all over you in the photos. Was he part of the work networking too?" Jenna jumped in before I could answer. "Ethan, you're being ridiculous. So what if some guy was in a group photo? Vesper's allowed to talk to people." "Talk to people, yes. Lie about it, no." "I didn't lie," I said, my voice getting louder. "I said I was going out with friends, and I did. The fact that we met some other people there doesn't make it a lie." "You told me it was work friends. You told Daryl it was work networking. You told Chloe you were working." Ethan's voice was still calm, which somehow made it worse. Which version was true? I could feel other diners starting to look our way. This was not how this was supposed to go. "You're being paranoid and controlling," I said, falling back on the script Jenna and I had rehearsed. "I can't have a social life without you interrogating me like I'm a criminal." "Exactly," Jenna chimed in. "Vesper works hard. She takes care of Chloe. She deserves to have fun sometimes. You should be supporting her, not making her feel guilty." Daryl had been quiet through this whole exchange, but now he cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Maybe we should order some appetizers," he suggested. No, let's talk about this, I said, feeling emboldened by Jenna's support. I'm tired of walking on eggshells in my own marriage. I went out, I danced, I had fun. I didn't do anything wrong. Dancing until 3 a.m. with a stranger while lying to your husband isn't wrong, Ethan asked. He wasn't a stranger, he was the bartender, and I wasn't lying, I was simplifying. God, Ethan, do I need to give you a minute-by-minute itinerary every time I leave the house? You need to be honest with me, that's all I've ever asked for. Honest about what? That I talked to another human being? That I danced? That I had fun for the first time in months? I was getting worked up now, my voice carrying across the restaurant. I'm sorry if that threatens you, but I can't live in a cage. No one's asking you to live in a cage, Vesper. Ethan's voice was still maddeningly calm. I'm asking you to be honest with your husband and present for your daughter. I am present for Chloe. I'm a great mother. You're a good mother when you're there, he agreed, but you missed movie night because you were grinding on some bartender in a nightclub. The word grinding hung in the air like a slap. I felt my face go hot. I was not grinding on anyone, I hissed. We were dancing, in a group, with other people around. Is that what you call it? Ethan pulled out his phone and set it on the table. On the screen was a photo I'd never seen before. Me and Toby during that slow dance, my body pressed against his hands on my lower back, our faces inches apart. The table went dead silent. I stared at the photo, my mouth dry. Where had he gotten this? Where did you get that? I whispered. Does it matter? Ethan asked. Is this what you call just dancing with friends? I looked around the table desperately. Jenna was staring at the photo with wide eyes. Daryl was studying his water glass intently. Other diners were openly watching our table now. It's just a dance, I said weakly. It doesn't mean anything. It means you lied to me, Ethan said, putting his phone away. It means you disrespected our marriage and our family. It means our daughter waited up until 10:30 for a mother who was too busy flirting with strangers to come home. Ethan, please, I said, tears starting to form. Can we talk about this at home? We tried talking at home. You called me paranoid and controlling instead. You are being controlling, I shot back, my voice breaking. You're humiliating me in public because I had one night of fun. I'm not humiliating you, Vesper. Your choices are humiliating you. That's when I snapped. My choices? I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. My choice to have a social life. My choice to feel alive for one night instead of being stuck at home with someone who thinks excitement is watching the Weather Channel. The entire restaurant was staring now. I could see phones being pulled out, people probably recording this train wreck. My choice to dance with someone who actually finds me attractive instead of someone who treats me like a roommate he occasionally sleeps with. Ethan's face went white. Jenna grabbed my arm. Vesper, sit down, she whispered urgently. But I couldn't stop. All the frustration, all the guilt, all the anger came pouring out. You want to know the truth, Ethan? The truth is that for one night I felt like a desirable woman instead of just a wife and mother. For one night, someone looked at me like I was beautiful and interesting and worth pursuing. I'm sorry if that threatens your fragile ego, but maybe if you put half as much effort into our marriage as you do into monitoring my every move, I wouldn't need to look elsewhere for attention. The words hung in the air like smoke after an explosion. I could hear my own breathing, could feel dozens of eyes on me, could see the devastation on Ethan's face. Slowly, he stood up. He pulled out his wallet, placed $60 on the table, enough to cover everyone's meals, and looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Thank you, he said quietly, for finally being honest. Then he walked out of the restaurant, leaving me standing there in my blue dress, surrounded by strangers and the wreckage of my marriage. Daryl stood up next, dropping a USB drive on the table as he passed. That's for Ethan, he said to Jenna without looking at me. From the club's security cameras. Then he was gone too, leaving me alone with Jenna and a restaurant full of people who'd just watched me destroy my life in real time. Monday morning at St. Elmo Hospital was a nightmare. I could feel eyes on me from the moment I walked through the automatic doors, could hear conversations stop abruptly when I passed, could see people huddled around phones and computer screens. "Morning, Vesper," said Janet from admissions, her voice artificially bright. "How was your weekend?" "Fine," I muttered, hurrying toward the elevator. But I could hear her whispering to someone behind me as soon as I passed. The elevator doors couldn't close fast enough. When they opened on the 4th floor, where my office was located, I practically ran down the hallway, desperate to get behind my closed door, where I could pretend everything was normal. It wasn't until I was settling at my desk with my coffee that I realized how bad things really were. My computer was already logged in, unusual, and there was an email waiting for me from HR. "Ms. Marwood, please see me at your earliest convenience regarding our social media policy. Best regards, Patricia Coleman, Human Resources Director." My stomach dropped. I'd been so focused on the problems at home that I hadn't thought about how the restaurant incident might affect my work. But of course someone had recorded it. Of course it was probably all over social media by now. I opened Facebook with trembling fingers. It didn't take long to find it, a video posted by someone who'd been at Romano's Friday night, titled, "Wife Has Epic Meltdown When Husband Confronts Her About Cheating." The video had been shared 47 times and had over 200 comments. I watched in horror as my own voice filled my office. For one night, someone looked at me like I was beautiful and interesting and worth pursuing. The comments were brutal. "What a horrible woman. That poor husband. She's literally admitting to cheating in public. Feel sorry for their kid. This is why I don't trust married women who go clubbing." I slammed the laptop shut, my hands shaking. This couldn't be happening. This was supposed to be a private matter between Ethan and me, not entertainment for the entire internet. My phone buzzed with a text from my father. "Saw the video. Call me." Another from my mother. "Honey, are you okay? People are saying terrible things online." And then one that made my blood run cold, from an unknown number. "Thought you should know. Your husband came by the club Saturday asking questions. Might want to call him off before this gets worse. Toby." I stared at the message, my mind racing. Ethan had gone to the club. What kind of questions? What did Toby mean by "before this gets worse"? Before I could process that fully, my office door opened without a knock. Patricia Coleman stood there, her expression serious. "Vesper, we need to talk." The HR meeting was even worse than I'd expected. Patricia had printed out screenshots from the video, from the Facebook photos, from comments people had made, identifying me as an employee of St. Elmo Hospital. "Our social media policy is very clear," she said, sliding the papers across her desk. "Employees are expected to conduct themselves in a manner that reflects positively on the hospital, both during work hours and in their personal time." "This was a private matter," I said weakly. "I had no idea someone was recording." "That's exactly the point, Vesper. In today's world, there's no such thing as truly private behavior. Everything can end up online, and when it does, it reflects on your employer." She pulled up the video on her computer and hit play. I watched myself again, heard my own voice saying those awful things, saw the devastation on Ethan's face. "I particularly want to draw your attention to this comment," Patricia continued, pointing to her screen. "Someone has identified you by name and mentioned that you work here. They're asking whether St. Elmo Hospital supports employees who cheat on their spouses." I felt sick. I didn't cheat on my husband. "According to this video, you admitted to seeking attention from other men because your husband wasn't meeting your needs. You admitted to lying about your whereabouts. And these photos—" She gestured to printouts of me and Toby dancing. "These don't look like innocent networking to me." "It was just dancing." "Vesper, I'm not here to judge your personal life, but I am here to protect this hospital's reputation. We've already had 3 phone calls this morning from patients asking about that woman from the video who works here. She leaned forward, her expression not unkind but firm. I'm placing you on administrative leave while we review this situation. You'll continue to receive pay, but I need you to go home and stay away from the hospital until further notice. For how long? That depends on how much attention this video gets and how it affects our reputation. I suggest you consult with a lawyer about getting it taken down. The drive home was a blur. I kept thinking about what Patricia had said, consult with a lawyer, but lawyers cost money, and I had no idea what our financial situation was. Ethan handled most of the bills, and with the way things were between us, I wasn't even sure I could access our accounts. When I pulled into our driveway, I was surprised to see Ethan's car there. He was supposed to be at work. My heart lifted slightly. Maybe he'd come home to talk, to work things out. But when I walked into the house, I found him in his office with boxes scattered around, methodically packing up his things. "What are you doing?" I asked from the doorway. He looked up at me, and I was shocked by how different he looked. There were dark circles under his eyes, and he'd lost weight. His shirt hung loose on his frame. But there was something else, something harder in his expression. "I'm moving into the guest room," he said simply. "I thought you should know." "Ethan, please, can we talk about this? I know I said some terrible things Friday night, but I was upset. I was embarrassed." "You were honest," he interrupted. "Finally. Completely honest. And I'm grateful for that." "What do you mean?" He stopped packing and looked at me directly. "You told me exactly how you feel about our marriage, about me, about what you've been looking for outside our relationship. Now I know where I stand." "You don't understand. I was just lashing out because I felt cornered." "Vesper." His voice was quiet but firm. "Stop. Stop what? Stop lying. Stop manipulating. Stop trying to rewrite what happened." He picked up a framed photo of us from our wedding day and wrapped it in newspaper. "You've been lying to me for weeks, maybe months. The club was just the most obvious example." "I haven't been lying for months." "Really?" He pulled out his phone and started reading. "March 15th. Told me you were working late, but your time card shows you left at 5:30. March 22nd. Said you were having lunch with your sister, but she called the house looking for you. April 3rd. Claimed you were at a work conference, but I called the hospital and they said it was voluntary." I stared at him, my mouth dry. "You've been tracking my movements?" "I've been trying to figure out why my wife has been lying to me." He put the phone away. "The club night wasn't an isolated incident, Vesper. It was just the first time you got caught." "So you went to the club? You interrogated Toby?" I asked him some questions, yes. He was very forthcoming about your conversation that night, about how you told him your marriage was complicated, how you felt trapped, how you wished your husband was more like him. My face burned. I had said those things, but I'd been drinking. I'd been caught up in the moment. I'd been feeling sorry for myself. "It didn't mean anything," I whispered. "It meant everything," Ethan replied. "It meant that while I was home with our daughter, believing my wife was networking with colleagues, she was actually telling a stranger how unhappy she was in her marriage." "Ethan, please." "I'm done, Vesper." He closed the box he'd been packing and picked it up. "I'm done being the boring husband you have to lie to. I'm done being the controlling man you have to escape from. I'm done pretending this marriage is something it's not." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I've contacted a lawyer. You should probably do the same." The words hit me like a physical blow. "You want a divorce?" "I want honesty. I want respect. I want a partner who doesn't see me as the enemy." He paused in the doorway. "Since you can't seem to provide any of those things, yes, I think divorce is the logical next step." "What about Chloe?" "What about her? You think this environment is good for her? You think watching her parents lie to each other and fight in public is healthy?" I started crying then, big ugly sobs that shook my whole body. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I know I messed up, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can work it out. Vesper," his voice was gentle now, which somehow made it worse. You stood up in a crowded restaurant and told everyone that you needed to look elsewhere for attention because I wasn't enough for you. You humiliated both of us in front of our friends and strangers. That's not something counseling can fix. But I love you, I sobbed. I love our family. I know you do, he said quietly, but love isn't enough when there's no trust left. After he left the room, I sat on the floor of his office, surrounded by the empty spaces where his things used to be. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. I was supposed to get some space, some excitement, some appreciation. I wasn't supposed to lose everything. My phone buzzed with another text from Toby. Your husband left his business card with my manager. Pretty sure he's building some kind of case. Thought you should know. A case. Legal evidence. I thought about the USB drive Daryl had left at the restaurant, about Ethan's questions at the club, about the way he'd been documenting my lies. For the first time since this all started, I realized I might be in real trouble. The email from Harrison and Associates law firm arrived on a Wednesday morning, 2 weeks after our disastrous dinner at Romano's. I stared at the subject line, Marwood Family Matter, for a full minute before opening it. Dear Mrs. Marwood, please contact our office at your earliest convenience to discuss custody arrangements and asset division in anticipation of dissolution proceedings. We represent your husband in this matter. My hands were shaking as I called the number. The receptionist was polite but firm. Mr. Harrison could see me Friday at 2 p.m., or I could retain my own counsel and communicate through legal channels. I didn't have my own counsel. I didn't even know how to find one, or how much it would cost, or whether I could afford it. Since being placed on administrative leave, I'd been cut off from our joint accounts. Ethan had moved everything to accounts with only his name on them. Friday afternoon, I sat in Harrison's waiting room, wearing my best suit, trying to look like a woman who had her life together. The office was all dark wood and leather chairs, the kind of place that charged $500 an hour just to look at you. When Mr. Harrison finally called me in, I was surprised by how young he was. Maybe 40, with kind eyes and a gentle manner that somehow made everything worse. Mrs. Marwood, thank you for coming in. I know this must be difficult for you. I don't understand why we need lawyers, I said, sitting in the chair across from his massive desk. Ethan and I can work this out ourselves. I'm afraid your husband feels differently. He's asked me to present you with some documentation and explain his position. He opened a thick folder and spread papers across the desk. Photos, printouts, timelines, receipts. My entire life laid out like evidence at a crime scene. Your husband has been quite thorough, Mr. Harrison said, not unkindly. He's documented a pattern of deceptive behavior spanning several months. I looked at the papers with growing horror. There were screenshots of my social media posts with location tags that contradicted what I'd told Ethan. Credit card receipts from places I'd claimed never to have been. Text messages between me and Jenna discussing how to handle Ethan's suspicions. Where did he get my text messages? I whispered. Family phone plan, Mr. Harrison explained. As the primary account holder, he has access to all usage records and can request message logs from the carrier. There were photos from the club's security cameras, me arriving alone despite telling Ethan I was meeting work friends, me dancing with Toby throughout the night, me in the parking lot exchanging numbers with him. This is stalking, I said desperately. This is invasion of privacy. Actually, it's legal discovery, Mr. Harrison corrected gently. Your husband has every right to investigate potential infidelity, especially when preparing for custody proceedings. Custody? My voice cracked. He wants to take Chloe away from me. He wants primary custody, yes, based on what he sees as a pattern of prioritizing your social life over your parental responsibilities. He showed me more documentation, the movie night Chloe had missed because I was at the club, the school events I'd skipped for mysterious work obligations, the times I'd left her with babysitters to go out with Jenna. Your husband has been the primary caregiver for some time, Mr. Harrison continued. He handles school pickup, homework supervision, medical appointments, extracurricular activities. His documentation shows that your involvement in your daughter's daily life has decreased significantly over the past year. That's not true, I protested. I'm a good mother. I'm not making judgments, Mrs. Marwood. I'm simply explaining your husband's position and the evidence he's prepared to present. He pulled out another set of papers. There's also the matter of your employment situation. My stomach dropped. What about it? You're currently on administrative leave pending investigation into conduct that reflects poorly on your employer. Your husband is concerned about the financial impact of potential job loss, as well as the effect on your ability to provide stable housing for your daughter. I'm going to get my job back, I said, but even I didn't believe it. Perhaps. But there's also this. He showed me printouts of the restaurant video and the social media comments. Your husband's attorney, that would be me, is prepared to argue that your public behavior demonstrates poor judgment and a lack of consideration for how your actions affect your child. I stared at the papers, feeling like I was drowning. What does he want from me? He wants primary custody of your daughter with supervised visitation for you until you complete counseling and demonstrate behavioral changes. He wants the house. He's been making all the mortgage payments anyway. He wants his retirement accounts and investments to remain separate since they predate the marriage and he's been the sole contributor. And what do I get? Your personal belongings, your car, and whatever assets you can prove you contributed independently to the marriage. Mr. Harrison's voice was gentle but firm. Mrs. Marwood, I have to be honest with you. Your husband has built a very strong case. If this goes to court, you're unlikely to get a favorable outcome. So what are you suggesting? That you consider accepting his terms. He's being quite generous, actually. Many men in his position would be seeking full custody and alimony. Generous? I laughed bitterly. He's taking my daughter and my home. He's offering you a path forward that doesn't involve a public trial where all of this evidence would be presented in open court, where reporters might be present, where your daughter might someday be able to read the transcripts. The drive home was a blur of tears and panic. How had everything gone so wrong so fast? 6 months ago, I'd been a successful hospital administrator with a stable marriage and a beautiful daughter. Now I was facing unemployment, divorce, and the loss of custody. When I got home, Ethan was in the kitchen making dinner, something with chicken and vegetables that smelled amazing. He looked up when I walked in, and I could see the question in his eyes. I met with your lawyer, I said, setting my purse on the counter. And you're really doing this. You're really going to destroy our family over one night out. Ethan turned off the stove and faced me fully. I'm not destroying our family, Vesper. You already did that. One mistake, Ethan, one night of poor judgment, and you're willing to throw away 8 years of marriage. It wasn't one night. His voice was calm, matter-of-fact. It was months of lying, months of putting your wants ahead of our family's needs, months of treating me like an obstacle to your happiness instead of your partner. I can change, I said desperately. I can be better. We can go to counseling. We can work this out. You had chances to change. Every time I asked you about your whereabouts, every time I expressed concern about your behavior, every time I tried to talk to you about feeling disconnected, those were all chances to be honest, to work together, to choose our marriage. I was just trying to find myself, I whispered. I felt so lost, so invisible. I just wanted to feel alive again. At the expense of our daughter's stability, at the expense of my trust, at the expense of our marriage vows. He shook his head. I understand that you are unhappy, Vesper. I even understand why you might have been tempted to look elsewhere for attention. But I can't understand why you chose to lie about it, why you chose to humiliate me publicly, why you chose to prioritize your feelings over our family. So that's it. You've made up your mind. I made up my mind the night you stood in that restaurant and told everyone that you needed to look elsewhere Because I wasn't enough for you. His voice cracked slightly. That was the moment I realized you didn't see me as your husband anymore. You saw me as your jailer. That's not true. Vesper, please, don't make this harder than it has to be. I looked around the kitchen, at the family photos on the refrigerator, at Chloe's artwork taped to the cabinets, at the life we'd built together, and felt it all slipping away. What about Chloe? I asked. How do we tell her? Together, Ethan said. We tell her together, and we make it clear that this isn't her fault, and that both of us will always love her. When? This weekend. I've already arranged for a family counselor to help us through it. I nodded, unable to speak. Everything was happening so fast, so efficiently. Ethan had thought of everything, planned for every contingency, prepared for every possible outcome. There's something else, he said quietly. The house is going on the market next week. I can't afford the mortgage on my salary alone, and I don't want to be here anymore anyway. Too many memories. Where will you go? I found a rental closer to Chloe's school. 2 bedrooms, so she can have her own space when she's with me. He paused. You'll need to find somewhere too. That night, I lay in our bed, my bed now, I supposed, and stared at the ceiling. In the space of 3 weeks, I'd lost my job, my marriage, my home, and my daughter. All because I'd wanted one night to feel young and desired and free. The worst part was that I could see Ethan's point. I could see how my choices had led us here, how my lies had broken something that couldn't be repaired. But understanding it didn't make it hurt any less. My phone buzzed with a text from Toby. Heard through the grapevine that your husband's been asking questions about me too. Might want to warn him that I don't appreciate being investigated. I stared at the message, a new kind of fear creeping up my spine. What did he mean by that? Was he threatening Ethan? But before I could respond, there was a knock at the front door. I looked at the clock, 9:47 p.m. Who would be here this late? I crept downstairs and peered through the window. A man in a suit stood on our porch, holding an official-looking envelope. Process server. With shaking hands, I opened the door and accepted the papers. Petition for dissolution of marriage, temporary custody order, financial disclosure requirements. It was really happening. My marriage was really over. And somehow I had the feeling that this was just the beginning.